Good afternoon. We'll pick up this caterpillar and toss it out in the bush. It's caterpillar time of year, which means that the catalpa trees are fixed to get eaten. They're going to become a food staple. And this is spectating and speculating 18. Yeah. And I saw an interesting image online. And this phrase came into my head. When he tips his hat, his head comes off. And I've been studying like I do, America's history. And I'm not just going back to 1776. I'm going back to what preceded that. And for those that would have it happen, made 1776 possible. And it's an interesting tale. And I'm going to take a photograph and include it in here while I'm talking, right quick, pop it in. And this photograph sort of contrasts, and there could be no greater contrast, the 10 words, which we in modern English think of as the 10 commandments. They were words. And also another set of commandments that those who would oppose God live by. And this is not terrifically common knowledge, although people have heard of things like, Ham sinned, and, the descendants of Cain, and Esau and the Edomites being a real problem, and various kinds of intermingling of cultures and so forth. We hear about the Hammurabi, which I suppose goes back to Ham, Japheth, Shem, Ham. Ham's the one that sinned. He's the one whose offspring was cursed, and from whence has come essentially the Middle East as we know it. And the 10 commandments, the 10 words, very simply broke down to the first 4 are about worship. And if you can get past the first 4, then you're ready to start looking in the mirror and see how well you're avoiding the remaining 6, right? First one, God says, I'm God. Then he says there aren't any other gods or idols that you ought to be worshiping. And then he says, don't invoke me for personal gain. That's what the don't take the Lord's name in vain is all about. So, for example, if you're a member of a large national fitness chain that calls itself CrossFit, you might notice a quote on the wall, as I did in the one here in our town when it was open, where Scripture was on the wall, painted in big letters, where Paul talked about near the end of his life that he had run the race. He kept running and he ran the race. He ran the race as long as he could, as hard as he could. And I suppose that's a good sports ethos for somebody to have personally, even though I'm quite certain the Apostle Paul wasn't flipping over cement-filled truck tires and, sitting in a Universal pushing 300-400 pounds with his legs and stuff and all that. I doubt it very much. I don't think the Apostle Paul was much into mixed martial arts or any of these other things that people do in order to have an attractive body. Nope, I don't. And the 4th word or commandment commands us to keep the Sabbath. And what that means is you keep going with the Sabbath all through the week. If what you're doing on the morning of the Sabbath, your morning of the Sabbath, in America it's usually Sunday morning, if what you're doing and seeing and hearing there on Sunday is true, that truth will be reflected Monday through Saturday the following week in the decisions you make with your free will as someone who's saved. Now, if you step out of church and by 3 in the afternoon you're drunk and lolling around in front of a flat screen TV with your friends and smoking cigars and talking about various people that you don't like very much and stuff, I'm thinking that you're not keeping the Sabbath for very long. I noticed that local drinking establishments that are open on Sunday, people are piling in there just about as soon as they're leaving the church parking lot, every single Sunday. They're not keeping the Sabbath. They're staying drunk. The remaining 6 commandments talk about things that we should keep in our mind. We choose what we think about. We choose the torments that we think about. We also choose the happiness and joy that we think about. We're supposed to honor our parents. And I do everything in my power. I'm not saved by works, but by faith, but I do everything in my power to actually honor my parents. And to honor your parents doesn't mean to go along with something wrong that they're doing or to approve of it. You probably ought not talk about it while they're still alive. That would be one way to honor your parents. Not to really conceal their errors and sins, but to save it for a time when it can no longer affect them socially. After all, most sin is based on socializing. I'm walking out to the mailbox, we're getting close to payday, which means the bills are showing up. It's all right. Honor your parents. If you're blessed with the kind of parents that were really happy that they had a child and they were willing to lean right into the incredible work of being a parent. It's even harder when you let your child be what they were created to be rather than a clone of yourself. That's another way to honor your parents, is raise your kids right. Create opportunities where your children might know their grandparents. Right? Create situations where your offspring might know their aunts and uncles, and that people can really love each other. I know this sounds very old school. It's because it doesn't happen much anymore. Number 6, don't murder, and that includes other people's reputations. It doesn't say thou shalt not kill. It says it's about intentional destruction of a thing, which could include taking its life, taking its reputation, taking the means by which it feeds itself. Don't murder. Number 7, no adultery. Marriage matters. Your word, you are only as good as your word. So pay very close attention to those vows before you speak them. Tina and I are both really enjoying this marriage that we have with one another, but I must confess, both of us had a starter marriage that was built on very, very sandy ground. And didn't work out. Both of us found ourselves leaving those marriages for the reason that is prescribed in the Bible. When you have been cheated upon, your marriage is over. Once it goes to a place of sexual indulgence with one or the other of the people that are married, outside the marriage, all of a sudden there are bloodline crimes occurring. It's time to get out of there. Number 8, it says don't steal, but originally it meant don't kidnap. Once again, it had to do with the treatment of other people. Of course, if you steal their stuff, it's going to impact upon them. But if you steal their children and their wives, that's a whole other sin right there. Number 9, where it says don't bear false witness, don't carry a lie, don't shoulder something which is untrue. Don't carry words as weapons. Don't bear false witness. Don't lie on other people. Don't say things about other people that are not true, and don't withhold wonderful things about other people when they are being knocked down by somebody else, when you could go to the defense of that person. That command, and also really, the book of James is just living on that particular 9th commandment, 9th word, because we don't like to be told what to say. Some people think hate speech is cool. They're usually really physically unattractive people. That's one thing I've noted. I think that their hatred comes right out in their appearance. It affects their appearance. And then the 10th and final commandment, the most difficult one, basically boils down to count the blessings you have. And this commandment says, do not covet. Do not covet. Do not want a thing that you do not need. Let me say that again. Don't want something that you do not need, to the point where perhaps you begin to plot means by which you might obtain it. It could be a person, it could be a material object like jewelry or an automobile. It could be taking advantage of somebody in a real estate deal. It could be misleading advertising, right? You covet money, and so you advertise your business as being a Christian business. But you sell alcohol, and you allow addicts to come in there and revel in paganism. You're coveting something, despite what the advertising says. Advertising is just his story. We move now to the doppelganger, the ugly list of commandments. There are 5 of them, just like there's 5 points on the Baphomet star. The curse of Ham, which has also been referred to in my studies as the Code of Hammurabi. They both have ham in them. I like to eat ham, but I sure don't want to build a religion around ham. You know what I'm saying? The Hammurabi Code inverts, essentially, 5 of Yahweh's commandments. Because with the adherence to this religion, and this religion has many, many denominations. Many, many, many denominations. They're the people that run the world today, and certainly the United States. If you're operating, rather than under the 10 Commandments, under the Code of Hammurabi, you will steal, because you are commanded to love robbery. You will murder or ruin the reputations of other people, because you are to love that. You're to love falsehood, lies, deception, trickery, advertising. 4th, you are to stick to your tribe. And by that, it means don't go outside the constraints of this religion, which you have taken an oath to keep secret in order to maintain the power you covet. You stick to your tribe. You betray no brother or sister in that church. And finally, love lewdness. Sloth, lust, gluttony. These are all ways of being lewd. And that, of course, goes right against your adultery. It goes against... I mean, if you're a lewd person, I don't think it reflects well on your parents. You're certainly going to be busting up the family name. If it's a good one, there are some. So there you have 10 commandments and 5 commandments. 5 being a numinous satanic number. And you have to choose one lane or the other, you see. And I have a painting in the house called Pick a Lane. There's a bunch of fish in the water. Some of them are going in one direction. Some of them are going in the other direction. Some are hovering around in the middle, a little bit uncertain of which group to run with. You got to pick a lane. We absolutely are forbidden to take oaths that would violate the 10 Commandments in any way, shape, or form, or what Jesus had to say on the subject. We're forbidden to do the 5 things that the Code of Hammurabi directs a person to do. So you can understand why these groups wouldn't want their names known. Why? Because part of this love falsehood, these people find their ways into all of the denominations of the Christian church. Pick any denomination. Examine what's being taught in that church and by whom. And you will very likely find people who certain nights meet with people in secrecy somewhere, wearing an apron and doing funky handshakes and knuckle pinches and stuff like that, and plotting ways to enrich themselves and have a good time and indulge in lewdness. You're probably visualizing some people in your own community right now that shoe fits right on them. Really repellent people. Really repellent people who come at you with the most charming and practiced smile that they can put on their face. That disarming smile. To pick your pocket. To seize on your energy and suck it away from you. To convince you to volunteer or serve their aim. And God help you when you realize that this is a con and you step out. Of course, you would probably step out because God does help you. Helps you discern. Helps you choose. Helps you muster up the courage to depart from that kind of wickedness. To sit down and handwrite a DIMIT letter. Keep a copy of it. Send that to the lodge and say, I'm out. This is too dangerous for my soul and my family. I got to get out. I know y'all going to throw my business under the bus. I know that these so-called blessings of paganism are going to vanish right quick. But I've already got more than that in this faith which I live with and walk with. And maybe you're just going to be like Wisteria. We're 50 weeks out of the year. You're just kind of there. People don't notice you. You're walking in the faith. You're not making waves. You're helping out when something that needs help appears before you, spontaneously. And otherwise, you're staying out of the way because you've got this faith which makes you walk, and that's where you go. And like Wisteria, maybe a couple times a year, something beautiful comes out of you. You know, something that says, man, I am so glad I'm on this side of the fence. I just gotta shine for a minute. I'm so happy to be a part of this. And like Wisteria, all is forgiven. Thank you for the flowers. It's great. It's great to be reminded of things that seem hidden for so long. I love all you folks. Thanks for being here. I see Jocko sees somebody off the street that he wants to talk to. It's probably a good time to push off.